Hello, Linder. It's wonderful to have your exhibition here in Newcastle, the Hatton Gallery. And I believe you often work with dance companies and dance groups. Could you tell us something about that?
When I was a small child, and I compared notes with other women from my generation, when we were children, we were often given every Christmas a ballet annual, the Princess Ballet Annual. And I used to pore over the photographs on every page, and I'd see photographs of both men and women wearing equal amounts of eye makeup, both wearing tights. And I became obsessed with the world of the ballet. It seemed as fairy tale as reading about Cinderella. So I was always fascinated by the iconography of ballet. But I used to beg my mother for dancing lessons, but I mean, we were on a council estate. There was nowhere I could learn to dance. So that yearning to be taught in a very classical way, in structured way, dance, that yearning's always stayed with me. And the fascination for ballet, just that discipline involved, that self-discipline, that rigor. But also at the same time, I'm always fascinated with so-called popular culture. I grew up, my formative years were near Wigan, so Northern Soul was happening when I was a teenager. Lots of people got to what's called Wigan Casino, to the all-nighters there, and just danced like crazy. And then I'd see them in Wigan Baths on a Sunday morning. It was the only cafe that was open in the whole of Wigan. So you'd have all these kind of extraordinary dancers and these huge flares with like red eyes because they were so tired in the swimming baths cafe at 7 a.m. So dance always fascinated me, and seeing Top of the Pops, etc. when I was little, and dancers from America, soul dancers, etc., and that very unique, specific glamour that they had. So when really it was the Hepworth Wakefield that really helped to fuse me with Northern Ballet. I'd been writing to Northern Ballet for a year or so, saying, would you be at all interested in a collaboration with an artist? And they completely ignored all my emails and phone calls, just because they're so busy. I mean, that's the only reason. And so the director of the Hepworth Wakefield got in touch with the director of Northern Ballet, and suddenly doors opened, and I was invited in, and I worked with Kenneth Tyndall, one of the chief choreographers. I'm going to say that again and start a new line. I finally entered Northern Ballet in 2012, and I worked with one of the young choreographers there, Kenneth Tyndall, and he was an absolute dream to work with. Kenneth's parents were both Northern Soul dancers, so he grew up dancing Northern Soul with his parents. And so when I arrived on his doorstep and said, can we do a piece of Northern Ballet that could also perhaps invite in parallel Northern Soul dancers, Kenny just got it right away. And he's like, yes, of course we can. And in the meantime, we worked on a ballet based on Barbara Hepworth's work. And I took in lots and lots of reference images to Kenny, not knowing how choreography worked, not knowing how ballet worked. And Kenny was just taking every image I gave to him. You could see he was absorbing all Hepworth's creative process as well as mine. And then we had this joyous period of choreography. I'm not a choreographer, but Kenny very generously let me sort of stand next to him and listen to my suggestions and my curiosity about how we could push that discipline. Because Northern Ballet, it's classical ballet, so it's very, very purist. And both the choreographer, Kenny, and all the dancers, they were eager, really eager to push the boundaries, to see where we could take it. So at one point in the ballet, you have, in a very traditional way, based on Hepworth's The Family of Man sculpture, you have the bride and groom doing a really heartfelt, this very, very beautiful, grounded, earthed dance, quite floor-based. And then I said to Kenny, can we now have the two male characters just do almost like a carbon copy of that? What will happen if two men now dance the roles of the bride and groom? And as we watched that happening in rehearsal, Kenny and I, and the dancers, we were mutually excited that we'd done something as simple as that, giving the bride and groom, traditionally the male and female roles, to two males, and watching them dance out. And so we did that a lot within ballet, trying to exchange. Ballet is so traditional.
So the blend of that popular culture with classical dance, with your visual art practice as well, your creative practice, and both feeding into each other really. So
they do. I think I'm like a little sponge too. I think that when I watch dance, or when I dance, at that point, it's so visceral, and so I'm always so curious about what happens. What happens if, like a form of collage, like a dance collage, if we put different dance forms together? And there was a piece for Art Night that happened on the Duke of York steps by the ICA, when you could all at the same time see tap dancers, Northern soul dancers, there was ballet, ballroom dancing happening, the music was improvised, there were Sikh musicians playing sacred Sikh music. There was a lot, this kind of tumbling, kind of messy, sprawling, gorgeous collage of both sound and dance styles. And somehow the dancers just find their places. And I just stand back. I mean, why interfere when something really exciting and new has happened? I'm just happy just to really step right out of the picture and leave the space to them. So when I do work with dancers, and I do all the time, my involvement is quite minimal. Often it's showing a series of images, research images, my own work, and then it's I can see when they've got it, and that's great. It's like it's over to you, and I step out, and people. It's a very liberated sphere. People can do what they do really, really well, but they're doing it to other people from different traditions who are also doing what they do really, really well.
It's interesting to see the parallels with your photomontage. This collage of dance movements, collage in different dance styles, collage in different music together.
Yes.
This new thing that's more from the things that have all been put together.
Yes, greater than the sum of its parts. That suddenly, and I can never predict how it's happening. Often budgets are low, not always. So often we can't rehearse that much. Sometimes we're lucky. We have great budgets for Art in the Underground. 2 years ago, we had a really healthy budget. But then, again, we couldn't do that many rehearsals because professional dancers are going every which way all the time. So you're trying to get even just 8 dancers together, but they can't, especially in capital city, because they're all, way, way off. So when it came to that final performance, the dancers only met on that day. They hadn't met before, but then you're putting them into a very, very public arena that I know, they will just flourish in the atmosphere. They won't shrink.
Improvisation.
A lot. There's huge chunks. Yeah, I mean, with the ballet, there was I think there was 0. We did 2 ballets at Northern Ballet and Kenneth Tyndall, Children of the Romantic Stain and The Ultimate Form. I think there was 0 improvisation, but everything else has swathes of improvisation, and nobody has any idea at certain points what everybody else is doing. So there's a lot of it's quite animalistic, where people are just really sensing their way from the performance. Often the musicians are improvising, so there's this gorgeous, everything's in flux. There's this gorgeous exchange where musicians are watching dancers and they're responding, then the dancers are responding to the musicians. So it's when it works, and for me, more than 9 out of 10 times, it does work. It's so thrilling. And the times when it doesn't work are also interesting. When it misfires, when it's like an engine that's kind of trying to get going but doesn't quite. That for me is equally interesting, because I'm really interested in failure. If there's such a thing as failure, I'm really interested in that too.
And could you tell me a little bit about the costumes as well, because they're fascinating?
Yes, I've been very, very lucky to. Here at Hatton, we see, I think there's two ballets. So I've worked with the late Richard Nichol, who did the costumes for the Hepworth Wakefield Ballet, The Ultimate Form, and I worked with Christopher Shannon on the Children of the Romantic Stain. So that, when you're bringing designers in, it's a huge learning curve for them, because suddenly you're obsessed with crotches and armpits, i.e. those parts of the body that have to be able to expand, which a fashion designer doesn't normally have to think about. can this crotch survive if somebody puts their leg up by their ear? So they have a lot of new demands on them about how to design for the body that's moving through space in very, very dynamic ways. And also for the dancers, it's also this thrill, because suddenly they have somebody like Richard Nicol or Chris Christiana making these extraordinary costumes for them. And so, again, mutually, there's an excitement happening. And that can happen on the simplest of forms in a village hall. You just could find somebody somewhere who can work a sewing machine, and you just put scraps of stuff from charity shops together. It doesn't depend on budget. It's more having that curiosity about, if you're in that village hall, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, the Yorkshire Moors, what can we make happen here in a very, very low budget, but with a lot of determination, and even more than that, a lot of curiosity about, what can be done. A lot can be done on very, very slender means.
Well, thank you so much for that insight, and I'm sure you're very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.